Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You are watching the only debate between the incumbent Congressman Gene Taylor and Republican challenger Stephen Palazzo, live on WKFK TV Channel 7 and listening on News Radio 104.9 FM. This question starts with Congressman Gene Taylor. Remember again tonight that our listeners are the ones that brought these questions forth. The Bush-era tax cuts are set to expire. What is your stance on the cuts as well as the patch on the alternative minimum tax?
Right. Number one, I would remind people that the night before the vote on the Bush budget, I went to the House floor and reminded the American people that as of that moment, our nation was already $5 trillion in debt, that we owed the Social Security Trust Fund $1.1 trillion, that we owed the Medicare Trust Fund about $800 billion, and that if the president said that we had surpluses as far as the eye could see, why didn't we pay back the money to Social Security and Medicare rather than simultaneously decreasing revenues and increasing spending? I didn't win on that vote. I voted against it. Truth of the matter is it reduced revenues by $150 billion a year and increased spending simultaneously by $500 billion. So we went from small annual operating surpluses to doubling the national debt in 8 years. We had a chance to balance the budget. The Bush budget prohibited that. We had a chance to repay the Social Security Trust Fund, to see to it that our seniors would know their checks would be paid. They didn't do that. We had a chance to repair the Medicare Trust Fund. We had a chance to get our nation out of debt, and instead we went from $5 trillion worth of debt to $10 trillion of debt. An administration that started with a small annual operating surplus ended with President Bush going on national television begging the Congress of the United States to give the Wall Street greed $600 billion in a bailout, and I voted against that too. The truth of the matter is I do believe in balanced budgets, and I don't believe in fairy tales. It costs money to run a nation, and I no more want to leave my children my debt than I want to leave your children our nation's debt. Now that the middle class tax cuts have been enacted, I will support them. But the tax for the 1% of Americans who make the most, quite frankly, I think it's time we need to get back to balancing our books. We need to balance our books. We need to pass a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution of the United States.
Thank you, Congressman. That's your 2 minutes. And let me ask the question again. Okay, the Bush-era tax cuts are set to expire. What is your stance on the cuts and the patch on the alternative minimum tax?
All right. Thank you, Kelly. As a small business owner and a CPA, I know firsthand because I've prepared thousands of tax returns for individuals and small businesses. Tax cuts are good. They're good for Americans, they're good for the economy, and they're good for job creation. The last thing you want to do is cut taxes in a recession. Our small businesses are struggling. Our families are hurting, middle-class families. If we do not extend these tax cuts, the Heritage Foundation has said that Mississippi could lose up to 60,000 jobs over the next decade. It's also expected that taxpayers in Mississippi will have to pay an additional $1,500 in taxes next year. We can't afford that. The cost of living's going up, everything's going up. We need the tax cuts, but we also need to balance the budget. We need to reduce spending. We need to limit the size of government. Let's just not talk about it. You know, Congressman's been talking about the national debt for 21 years. It was $3 trillion when he first got there, and now it's $14 trillion. And under his party, led by Nancy Pelosi and President Obama, if they continue spending the way they're spending, we're going to be at $20 trillion. That's an unsustainable fiscal policy for this country, which will bankrupt our country and put debt on our future generations for years to come.
Thank you so much. Congressman Taylor, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Stephen claims to be for a balanced budget, and yet he criticizes me for taking a responsible vote to balance our budget. We have an obligation to our senior citizens, those on Medicare, our veterans, the very people who made this nation great. We had a chance during the early years of the Bush administration to pay off the national debt. Instead, they voted to double the national debt and set us in a spiral that resulted in the $600 billion Wall Street bailout.
All right, I'm going to stop you there. That's a great place to stop, I think. I want to remind everybody, too, that you can watch the debate again Saturday at 3 and Election Day, Tuesday at 10 on WKFK TV 7. You can also hear it again on News Radio 104.9 FM, 7 Monday morning and 6 Monday night. All right, this question will go to Mr. Palazzo first. Would you sponsor or vote for a bill that would require mandated drug tests for anyone receiving welfare and food stamp benefits?
Absolutely. In fact, there's a ballot initiative that's being put forth by Mississippians right now as we're talking that, you know, it's just kind of unfair. I mean, we're out there working every day. We're working hard to feed our families. We're trying to educate ourselves to get better jobs. And it feels like we're supporting those who don't want to work. They just want to, you know, and some people need these short-term benefits, and we understand that because America has a tradition of providing short-term welfare, but it should be more community, family, and church-based. The federal government should not be in the business of redistributing our wealth, and to require them to pass a drug test is not too much to ask. I've been in the National Guard and been serving as a citizen soldier for over 20 years. We have to do it on a mandatory, random basis. As an employer, you know, and I've worked for companies that they require you to do that. So, in a sense, this is my taxpayer funds, and I want to know for a fact that we're not paying people who use drugs and receiving benefits.
Thank you so much. I'll ask the question again for you, Congressman Taylor. Would you sponsor or vote for a bill that would require mandated drug tests for anyone receiving welfare or food stamp benefits?
Kelly, I would take that a step further. I would not only do that, but I've actually initiated legislation and pushed for legislation that would require drug testing for all DOD employees because it comes out of the House Armed Services bill, and have it for all federal employees. Quite frankly, no one should be using their federal paycheck to buy an illegal substance. Unlike Stephen, I've been to Afghanistan 7 times and have visited the Mississippi National Guard that he serves in Afghanistan and Iraq 9 times. One of the biggest problems over there is illegal drug use. In fact, in Afghanistan, it is the #1 cash crop. It's a real problem that we need to fight, and one of the ways to fight it is to tell those people who work for you and me that you're not going to use drugs. If you use drugs, you're going to lose your job.
Thank you so much. You have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Again, it's just unfair to be, you know, using taxpayer dollars, knowing that somebody could, you know, possibly be spending it on drugs. We need, you know, if they need help, there's help to be found. And I appreciate Congressman Taylor's photo ops to Afghanistan and Iraq, and I know this will, you know, the troops probably appreciate you being there.
Thank you so much.